I can remember when I was a kid, my dad's a pastor, and as a kid, my dad would talk to the church about giving and the importance of it. And I can remember him talking about Psalm chapter 50, verse 9 through 11, where it talks about how God owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. And there would be different times when our church would be struggling, we'd be going through different things, and my dad would say, we need to ask God to sell some of those cattle so that we can meet the needs that we have. And that's always stayed with me. I've always thought about that. I've always thought about the fact that at a certain point, obviously God owns everything. There is a sense that at some point we do have to ask Him for things, and that's kind of the season that we're in right now at Vanguard. We've entered into the season of the Real Project and entered into the season of stewardship and generous giving. And I remember just recently I was doing a funeral, and this funeral director was driving me down the road, and we were in the hearse and casket in the back, and I mean, it's a surreal moment if you can imagine. And the funeral director turns to me as he's driving me down the road and says, "So you started Vanguard?" Yeah. Well, what would happen to Vanguard if you died? I guess is a question a funeral director has with a lot of people. I said, "Well, what do you mean?" He said, "Well, who owns Vanguard?" It's like, well, I don't own Vanguard. God owns Vanguard, and this is God's vision. This is God's directive. It's not mine. I can remember a conversation that I had with my children. They asked me the same question, who owns Vanguard? And I can remember having a conversation with them, and I can remember one time I had a bag of Reese's peanut butter cups, and I gave them a Reese's peanut butter cup, and they all started eating it, and I asked each one of them if I could have a bite. And it was very interesting to watch their faces, their expressions. I mean, they've got a little bit of it in their mouth, and they're enjoying it, and they know there's not a whole lot to a Reese's peanut butter cup, and so they're not sure they want to give up any of the rest of it. And finally, I shared with them, I said, "You know something?" I said, I have a whole bag of these. And your daddy asked you just to give him a bite, and if you would have given me a bite, I would have given you a whole bunch more. It was interesting to see the look on their faces, and I think about that in terms of Vanguard and us, and how God has entrusted Vanguard to us. And He's given us Vanguard, and I think He wants to give us more of Vanguard. I think He wants to give us more of His mission. And I think about several times when Vanguard has gone through hard times. I think about a couple of times actually when Tasha and I have gone out on a date, and I can remember distinctly a couple of times where we had the conversation, well, maybe this is it. Maybe Vanguard's not going to make it past this Sunday because financially I don't think we're going to be able to swing it. And it's interesting to me how each of those times God was teaching us that we didn't own Vanguard. And that is a painful experience because if you're a parent like I am, there's a tendency to think you own your children. There's a tendency to think you own your house, you own your car. If you start something, a business, you may think you own that. And certainly Tasha and I started Vanguard, and there is that temptation to think that we own this. But each time along the way, there's been many mile markers where God has said, no, you don't own this. I do. And the irony of those stories are the two times that we've sat down and had that experience in certain restaurants, soon after that experience where we've dedicated Vanguard back to God, the restaurants that we ate at went bankrupt and they closed. And so just the irony and the oddity of that is just extremely unique to us. We oftentimes think we're in control of our situations and in control of our circumstances, and the reality is God is over and over again trying to communicate to us that He's in charge, that He owns everything. Our lives, our churches, our children, our marriages, everything. And so this is a season, the Real Project is a season for Tasha and I, for all of us, where we're trying to give back Vanguard to God so that He can give us more Reese's.